All right. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting February 12th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Zoom platform and in person. This meeting is recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's webpage. I see in my great wisdom that we have a quorum, so I, Sven Weber, hereby call this meeting to order. It just need to call it to order, that's all. First action item is review and approval of the minutes from January 15th, 2025. Any comments from the commissioners? No. Okay, so I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Herewith approved. Next action item, review of calendar.
Okay, as you know, this is always sort of a planning document. We are sort of focused over between now and town meeting on just sort of advocating and sort of communicating on some of our larger initiatives we'll be talking about today. Anticipated in March, so presently we're tentatively planned for March 12th. That's again the second Wednesday of the month is when the commission generally meets between 4 to 6. We'll be talking about a roads program update more targeted to the 26 construction schedule. We'll be providing, we have some interest from the engineering division to talk about guardrail specifications and things that we're sort of dealing with to try and finalize some contracts and RFPs. And we will probably be providing an update on the water sewer meter replacement program that we've been sort of heavily involved with in standing up. And then you can see in April, we'll be looking at town meeting preparation. And in May, we're going to have two significant hearings, the water enterprise rate hearing, that's an annual activity, and then this will lead into a stormwater enterprise hearing, and it'll be the first one we'll have. That's where the commission is going to be asked to consider the rates that we're looking at and discussing. Starting, we've been talking about the last 6 months, but starting to share with the community with today, with a series of opportunities to reach out to the entire community to talk about what a stormwater utility is. So those are sort of the heavier lifts that we have on our radar, and then as issues come up or special projects, we will infill as well. So that's what we've got on the
So on the
radar.
stormwater rate hearing, given that the timing is on May 14th, so this is before the town meeting.
That's correct.
So any decision we make there would be subject to the approval of the stormwater enterprise by the town meeting, or?
That's correct, and we'll talk a little bit more about the schedule of work relating to stormwater in our presentation.
Okay. Any questions from?
No.
No? Okay, then we move to public comments. These are for public comments on topics that are not on the agenda. Public comments will be limited to 15 minutes with no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker. We always welcome written comments at any time. They are not getting hidden somewhere in the paperwork. We really read them. Any public comments in the room? Anything online? None, that's easy. Going to commissioner comments. I have 2 comments or FYIs for the commission just to be aware of. One is, as I understand, the national park issued a significant amount of wishes related to new signages all across the town. Some are within the historic district, some are outside of the historic district. Again, in the historic district, it's a combined effort between the Historic District Commission and us. Outside, we're the sole approving entity understand this correctly. I think the critical path will be, and we might have to consult potentially with others, is this too much for the town? You know, if you look at the sheer amount of signage they want to put around in town, is this kind of a signage pollution or not? But Alan will update us on that once this is really time for us to review. The second comment is with respect to potential article from Planning Board and Economic Vitality Committee with respect to changing the zoning in the commercial districts, that when you change in the commercial district from a business use to another business use or even to residential, that there will be no change or no additional parking review required. The one thing that might affect us, and the planning board highlighted that already, is that if there's a change to residential use, people who live there might not have really overnight parking, specifically in the respective downtown areas. And that might affect our winter no parking overnight situation. And where will these people park? The planning board seems to take the position that is our problem and the select board's problem, because that's a policy and not a zoning. So we will face that question probably during the hearings leading up to the town meeting. So that's just FYI, nothing to decide right now, but it affects us here. Any other comments and observations from commissioners? All right, so let's jump right into the next one, the roads and safety, asset management and investment strategy. This is a little bit unusual setting. I understand that we have members of Transportation Advisory Committee present. Do you have a quorum?
Absolutely. I'm the only member of CPA, and everyone's good.
I see Nick Pappas is on. I'm not sure. I think Nick may be the only other member
Okay, so
that I see, yeah. Rebecca Woodward is also available. She's on the committee? You don't have a quorum? Okay.
okay.
Can you raise your hand if I didn't see you, and we'll just make sure we don't have a fourth? Bob, if you can keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Okay.
So then you don't need to call your section to order, which makes it a little bit easier. Again, this is quite a detailed presentation we will see with respect to the roads and safety program. I had a chance to preview it. I think the Public Works team did a great job in looking at the different scenarios and giving us in the town the option to understand what different scenarios and different decision paths mean for the short and for the long term for the town, and what it means with respect to the financing of the town. I think we have to be very sensitive about how much money we spend on one end. On the other end, we have to be very sensitive to have a safe environment here, both on the roads and the sidewalks and on street crossings. So that is the major focus here. And I will probably, when you have the slides, I will probably start with this first 1.5 slides and then hand it over. So just to give you the understanding where we are today, today we have about 45% of the 107 miles of roads, something like that, in fair to poor condition. And what that means, you will see later again, very poor 5% and 8% in failing. We have a backlog of about $21 million of repair and investments in streets, and we have an average PCI of 73. We a little bit bumped up to 70, from 71 to 73 this year because we did the main work on Main Street and here. But that's only kind of a short-lived situation, because if you're looking at how the status quo goes on investment pace, we have an annual budget of $2.5 million, a 10-year total of $25 million when we just do business as usual. And it is approved year to year with certain planning uncertainties, where in the end we can only start negotiating with vendors after town meeting and try to push everything into between town meeting and winter start. It's a very rough situation in logistics in getting this done. If we continue that path for 10 years with $2.5 million per year, we are ending up in 2023 to have 38% of the streets in failing. So what this means, and we have a backlog of 37 million. That means the streets are failing faster than we are right now repairing them at a rate of $2.5 million per year. And that is something that is very costly, and we will see that. You have the next slide still? Yes. So the question we had raised and given to Public Works team is there a smarter way to invest in our roads, that we are not ending up, after spending $25 million over 10 years, in having a larger backlog of $37 million and still 38% of roads failing in town. And that was the situation where we started. And perhaps you take it from here, Alan, and I think Steve Dukran will join us here.
Sure. Well, I'll introduce Steve Dukran, town engineer, who's been working with Stantec engineering firm on some of our assessments of our assets for pavement, road, sidewalk, as well as considerations of some of the safety interests that we've been hearing along the way. And I think it's important to understand Steve's going to go through some technical slides. I would suggest let him walk us through it all. You're going to see some tables with lots of figures on them. But I think the key is to understand sort of the gist of where we're going, and we can go back to these slides and kind of look at them more. But this introduction is important because we're trying to achieve multiple objectives and trying to do it efficiently with significant attention and sensitivity to costs. And I think what we really need to understand is we're not looking at the cost next year. We're looking at the cost over 10 years. And that's very important. So, Steve, I'll kind of let you take it from here.
Okay. I think we can coordinate the slide movement, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I think it says the objectives there. Yeah. So our goals and objectives are certainly to reduce our backlog. And let's talk about our backlog. It's the cost that will be needed for 1 year to eradicate the deficiencies in the road. So to bring the road network up to a almost perfect condition. So you'll see that term mentioned throughout the slides, so just know that. All right, so our main objective is to get that backlog down to a point where it's manageable over 10 years. Then as we move into our road projects, address any safety or transportation needs. So the idea, we've been talking about that at the Public Works Commission for the last couple of meetings. It's a goal of ours to do so. And certainly, we're going to invest, let's invest more efficiently. Point to note here is that there are many reasons why you should do so, but the biggest would be the ability to do larger projects and multi-year projects, and so doing, you can, get your streets up to the right condition without having the major impacts that you would have throughout town. All right, what's the proposal? let's invest in an accelerated way to, into this program. We want to use the best practice in the industry, which is you optimize the roadway repairs before the cost gets significant. And you'll see that further explained in some of the slides. And I want to introduce while I'm here, there might be a Stantec representative on Zoom. His name is Bill Scapetti, and if, he's the one who, he and his team who did all this work. So I want to recognize that they're present and will help us answer any questions that we are unable to. Anyway, so the proposal will be for the first 5 years. Let's determine what our pavement condition index target is and what that will cost to get there, and then beyond that, how can we get to a more manageable regular spending, which we will call the run rate at a lower cost. All right, so some pictures showing you different road conditions. The very top one at the left is the best condition, no repairs needed. All the way down to the bottom where you have to go in and tear up that road and rebuild it. And so base rehabilitation is that the worst condition. All right, so the next slide will show you what some of the repairs. You use different treatments for different conditions. So the cheapest up there would be crack sealing, and then you have fog sealing, which is a little bit more expensive, all the way down again to full depth reconstruction. The two pictures to the bottom, the middle and the right, that's where you're rebuilding the road. The middle picture shows the kind of equipment you need to tear up that road, and then you're putting a brand new layer of asphalt. So you're rebuilding that road. Okay, here, this is where we start. This is where Stantec started. We want to look at the street pavement condition, and so we took the survey. The survey is actually done by this vehicle owned by StreetScan. They have three-dimensional cameras, so through the imaging, you can transform what you have conditions to actually a condition index, the PCI. And the sidewalk condition was done by person. As noted there, Stantec did 50% of inspections, and then they use the other 50% from all data to extrapolate what the whole network is. We have 59 miles of sidewalks, and so they did, half, about 30 miles by person. All right, and then let's see. This is what an overview of what town pavement condition looks like. So the average condition of 107 miles is 73, which is a fair condition. So you'll see when we look at the chart later on, you'll see where fair falls in the overall picture. The backlog that we mentioned today is $21 million. And I gave you the definition of backlog already. So if you look for your street in there, you'll see where it stands. Different colors show the different conditions. Right? This is important to look at. This is today's condition. The green represents an excellent condition down to the red on the left, which is in really poor. You want to look at the pavement indexes for each of those groupings. So you have good, fair, poor, and failing, and so on. Within each of those groupings, you see the different levels. If you want to make sure that you don't do the worst first, because if you do that, you will allow the better part of that group to fall into a lower level, because you spend more money trying to do the worst first. So again, this is something that Stantec can explain better than I can, but the important thing is to remember that you want to treat within a grouping those streets that are higher in their groupings before they get to be too bad. Because treating a street that's not so bad is certainly cheaper than doing it when it falls into a bad category. All right? So here, this curve we've shown to the Public Works Commission several times before. The curve itself represents what happens to the street over time. You start off the first several years in the green, it's very slow deteriorating, and then once it hits that knee there, it starts to drop quickly. So look at where fear is. I mentioned that we are in the fear condition overall. So you can drop really quickly if you don't pay attention to where our streets are. So some people might be tempted to say, well, you're fear, that's good enough. That's almost a pass. But 40% drop in quality over 12% of life. So if you have your road lasted 20 years, you will be losing 2 to 3 years, losing 40% of the life of the street over 2 to 3 years. So you can go from fear to very, very poor in just 3 years. Obviously, depending on weather conditions, the traffic, and so on and so forth. Then look at the cost ratio. If you spend $1 at the fear point today, you can prevent yourself from spending $6 to $8 at the very poor point. So the what I oval there, those percents. 45% of our streets are in the fear to poor condition, 5% in the poor to very poor, and 8% of our streets are in the failed condition today, 2025. So let's look at, if we do nothing and we continue business as usual in 10 years, 2035, look what happens. The numbers before, right? We had 45% in the poor to fear going down to 9%, and 8% that was in the failing condition, that goes up to 38%. And I mentioned the $1 before to I think $7 or $8. Here you have actual cost numbers given by the square yard or the lane mile. Take for instance, routine maintenance, $3 to $8 per square yard, down to base rebuilding, that's $42 to $60 per square yard. So 3 to 4 times. We're in the fear category, so we're in the preventative. So it would be 3 to 4 times if you let those streets fall into the rebuilding of streets. Okay, and so moving on to here. Here's where we looked at our neighbors. What are our neighbors doing? So we have some neighbors who are doing a very successful program, Lexington and Bedford. They set their pavement condition target both to 85. And in 2022, Lexington was approaching 90, and Bedford was 81, 82. So compared with where we are, we are in 73 today. So that gave us, or gives Stantec an idea of where we should be looking in terms of setting our pavement condition target. And so they went and ran their models. So this is different budget models. The bar is blocking some of the headings there, but I can tell you what that's saying. The first column, it's the current budget, and our PCI is lower. But the second column, it's PCI to 85. The third, which is kind of reddish, mauvish, that's PCI to 85. Then the blue is 88. The purple is 91. The orange is 92, and green is 97. So the Stantec set those PCI targets to run their models, looking at trying to achieve PCI's targets within the first 5 years, and then looking at maintaining that PCI in the ensuing 10 years. So anyway, let me just pick a couple to show you, you know, what is favorable to us. Let's go into the next slide. I didn't do that.
Yeah, that is my computer. Or is it? Bob, is it something that you can run? Because mine says,
He was writing me, give me a second to pull out the slides.
yeah, it's just that, I don't know if that, where I'm charging off isn't working properly? No, that must be the USB. No, it's not this. I mean, this is. No, there's no power on this. So try this one. This extension. Maybe if you could just unplug it over there.
It's unplugged down here.
Oh, it's not even plugged in.
Small details.
Sorry about that. It's, all right, I see it's being energized, so, Steve, can you talk a little bit on the concepts, just while I'm sort of bringing this
okay,
up?
Sure. Well, I needed colors to talk about it, but so the different models looked at the different spending. You know, for instance, one of the models is spending $5 million per year for 5 years, right? So that's $25 million. And the result was getting, the result that Stantec got, we can get the PCI of 85. So $25 million, 5 per year, and then followed by $2 million for each of the next 5 years. And that will be a total spending of $35 million. And the backlog then will be $12 million. Remember, we are, 37 today? And the chair mentioned earlier, you spend 25 over 10 years, your backlog goes up. Today we are 21, but the backlog goes up to 37 in 10 years. So some of these models will show you definitely that we're down to, you know, less than 10, around $10 million in backlog over.
Steve, I think it's hard to follow without having.
Yeah,
numbers.
give me 1 minute, and I've now got back here. I just gotta get into the
Rather
Zoom.
give it like a 2-minute break.
Yeah, just take so I can get into back to the meeting. So. Bob, you're gonna have to admit me.
How many did I have?
Okay, yeah.
You have to admit,
Is Linda available? Is she? Yeah. Okay, all right, now I'm good. Okay.
any way we get that bar away?
I couldn't see, it's sort of a control, it's not on my screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the bar sits exactly on the label of.
Yeah, I know, and I can't minimize it, so. PowerPoint, because it's a PowerPoint, I can't control the size of it. Okay, you know what I'll do? I will not have it in that view. Let me try something. Okay, all right, here we go.
can you go to the table?
Yeah, I want to see if we're in this area here.
Oh, can you?
But I
yeah.
can't get rid of that black line.
Yeah, but now we at least see something.
Okay, all right, so I
Yeah.
won't, okay, we're
So,
good there.
People need that.
can you in the room read this or not? Yeah?
Let me do this.
Okay.
All right, okay, so this is interesting.
Yeah, but
Now
we
I-
need to see the backlog down there.
Yeah,
Sorry.
can we see this?
One small, still smaller. Yeah.
Okay, so Steve?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
So just shortly, because this is important for.
Go
for
ahead,
many
I'll zoom
commissioners.
in out so you can
Yeah, so-
talk to it, okay?
Yeah. So can you say, so down there, the last row is the backlog. So you have the columns are the investment strategies, and then you see the last row is the backlog that is resulting after 10 years working on it. The 10-year total gives you the total of money spent over 10 years, and the fiscal year 2035 gives you the run rate year as a town annually spending money to keep the streets in good condition. So just to frame this a little bit, looking at the different scenarios, we want to optimize on a few things. We want to get a low run rate after we are done, that we are not spending big dollars year over year over year again. We want to maximize the dollars we are spending over a 10-year total, and we want to minimize the backlog. So that's literally kind of the three factors from a financial perspective we want to look at this.
And then compare it to the PCI up top, which is really the condition of the road. So,
Okay, so sorry, Steve, for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the colors are important. There's a lot of coordination of colors between the tables and these graphs. So these graphs will show you the pattern of spending and the achievement of the PCI. So this actual one is the pavement condition projections. So let's take one for instance. Let's take the green one. It's the simplest. It's the best case scenario if you want to get perfect condition. So in 5 years, you're spending $7.5 million each of the 4 years, and then 5.4. So you get to that pavement condition of middle 90s, actually high 90s, and then that you maintain that with a run rate of $0.6 million for the next 5 years. And if you go back to the chart below, before you'd see it's a zero backlog. Right? So anyway, we wanted to point out that there's one little error in the graph. We should have a blue line, where the two yellowish ones in the middle. One should have been blue to correspond with the previous table where the PCI was 88. All right. Then the next set of graphs is showing the backlogs. The very top one, the red, that's today's spending. You keep spending $2.5 million a year, that's where we're going to end up. The backlog of $37 million, and that's going to be maintained for some years in the future. And the improved spending is all below. So anyway.
and Steve, I just want to interject. You just the business as usual is that red line, and it's really important to understand that if you look at the 10-year costs, it's going to be an equal, but the conditions are going to be far inferior, as shown. So that's really that's the trend we're on presently.
All right. So the next slide, instead of having to go through everything, we kind of zeroed in onto what we call our favorable options, trying to get our PCI between 88 and 91. So the spending there would be, the blue one would be $5.75 million per year for 4 years, and in the 5th year, $2 million, giving you a total of 25 for that 5-year period. And then your run rate would be $2 million for the following first 2 years, followed by $1.5 million. A total 10 years of $33.5 million and a backlog of $9.1 million. And then the slightly higher PCI, $7.5 million for the first 3 years, followed by $2 million each for the next 2 years, making the 5-year spending of $26.5 million. You know, that will probably be, if we can achieve that, that'd be great. Practically, it's hard when you're trying to spend so much money, trying to push projects, trying to get utilities to coordinate with you. Utilities are always going to be the delay because they too have to get their capital plans to synchronize with yours. But anyway, this is what, somewhere in between there is what we think would work well for the town. Okay.
Can you go back? So, and in bold are the numbers that would go in tier 3 capital, yeah? So if you look at where the money comes from, would be the bold numbers are tier 3. So in 88, this is 23 million, and in the 91 PCI scenario, it's actually less, 22.5. And it feels a little bit counterintuitive to spend more money in a shorter period of time, it's ending up cheaper, and there's less of a backlog, but that shows in what critical stage the roads are. That the faster we can act, actually, the less it costs us. Yeah. The challenge I think you have is can you really deploy the capital that fast?
That's right. It's a big impact on the community, and really when we're trying to do things in a planned manner, we are trying to integrate it with some of the safety considerations we need. We need to integrate with underground utilities as well. That's how we do things holistically in a efficient way. But you know, this is just a model. But I think what's the idea of any model is not the specifics of it, but what's the message? The sooner we get improvements on our road conditions, the faster we'll see a return on investment and the cheaper it will be over the long term. And a reminder, our current investment rate is somewhere about $2.5 million a year. And, you know, over 10 years, that's $25 million. And we're just talking at this point roads.
You have a question?
Steve, I have a quick question on, I guess, the previous one.
Yeah.
Has inflation been factored into this? We can't really, is it coming up?
Yes.
No, it's 4%.
Okay, so you factored in 4%, and then the backlog number at the bottom, that's the backlog anticipated on year 10, or that's the backlog anticipated 10, 11, 12, 13 as a more manageable number at that point?
That'll be year 10.
So
Yes.
then,
The model is only run out to 10 years at this point.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Okay, so this one is a bright red blob in the middle there, and this comes from a banker who knows these terms. Capital efficiency. I think the chair can explain that better than I can.
So the idea was to say if we add up what we spend over 10 years plus the backlog that we have after 10 years, and think of that as a kind of a long-term liability for the town, you're ending up at doing business as usual as a combined $62 million. Whereas if you're any of the other scenarios, we are cheaper than that. But if you're looking at the narrowed-in scenarios, you would be instead of $62 million liability as of today, we would be then a combined 42 of 37 million, means you're $19 to $25 million in advantage, and you only have a significant lower run rate of like 1 million to 1.5 million in these scenarios compared to 2 million run rate. So it's in the end, again, this feeling is okay, we're accelerating spendings, but we're achieving over a 10-year period a much better fiscal situation for the town. we can do and continue what we do today, but then we spend $25 million and our roads are even worse. That's the situation we are in. That's what the big bubble.
Yeah, that's the finance. The impact on the community is really the condition of the roads, which, status quo is less satisfaction, more angst, frustration, investment, more satisfaction.
So I would, before we go into sidewalks, because it's again a tough one, perhaps open this up either to the commissioners if there are additional questions first, and then already to the public to have that section perhaps covered. Anything from your end here? Any questions from the public? And please limit it to 2 minutes.
Hi, Carlin Reed, 83 would say, and I'm a member of the Finance Committee, but speak on my own behalf. Got a question about the financing of the various options. 2 parts. One, what time period would the borrowing occur? Because the Finance Committee is going to be asked to model how this would impact the tax budget for the residential median household. Is it a 10-year borrowing or 15-year borrowing? And secondly, have you considered a fourth factor? Sven, I know you mentioned 3. The fourth factor is the impact on the taxes that the debt service would have for each one of those options. Because that's how the taxpayer is going to see it, not these numbers of how much is borrowed at the 3-year, 4-year, 5-year period, but how much it hits the tax bill. So that information I think would be useful to know the tax impact of each one of those options.
Yeah, I understand the CFO here of the town reached out to.
Yeah, so we'll be working with the finance CFO on looking at some of those models. Right now, we're sort of getting the concept out. Then we'll start sort of narrowing into what makes the most sense. And I imagine, the townhouse and finance group will be, we're aware of the question. We know we'll be coming up with, this is a part of the outreach and justification.
But if I just do the back of the envelope calculation, again, even if we are factoring in something like a 4 to 5% interest rate over, let's say, 10 or 15 years, that's the framework probably, I assume. The interest is still significantly less than the capital efficiency we are showing here on this. So we're still in the good.
Yeah, and at some point, we're going to have to reconcile the backlog.
Yeah, but it's clear. So what I would assume is, given right now we are taking $2.5 million out of tier 2, but we would take, let's say $6 million debt in the first year, which goes over 10 or 15 years. In the first year, actually, it has probably, the first and second year has probably tax incentive. And then it will be more have a tax effect in year 3, 4, 5, 6 that is worse than paying the 2.5 annually. But I think the CFO needs to figure that out and map this out.
I do see,
Hi, I'm Mimi Graney, the Economic Vitality Manager. I'm curious on how this dovetails with subsurface infrastructure improvements, whether those can be rolled out in time. Like, does that affect which options you might choose, and how the added investments for that might impact these scenarios?
yeah, so we do evaluate all our road improvement projects. Engineering will reach out to the various utilities, including National Grid, but internally, municipal light plant, water, sewer. And we do work to try and get that work done in anticipation of the road work. That's one of the challenges of the accelerated $7.5 million. It's probably unrealistic for us to achieve, but the message is the same. The sooner we can make these investments, the better. And it may modify the plan of work, but they will have an impact on the overall cost of the project. Water, sewer work would be covered through the enterprise funds, through water sewer rates, and municipal light plant, the same thing. And with National Grid, it's just a matter of, sort of working with them. Steve, I don't know if there's anything.
Yes, I want to add to that. It would be great if you can go into a street and do everything brand new like we did on the Cambridge Turnpike a few years ago. Maybe you weren't here, but that was a major project and everything got redone there. Water, electric, gas, everything. But the way it has to be approached, obviously we will coordinate with the utilities, and if their infrastructure, the underground, is in bad shape, we will give them the opportunity to fix that infrastructure if they do have a capital for it. Often they don't. One of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that the life of a street is much less than the life of a utility or some underground infrastructure. So often you'd find where the gas company would say, I'm gonna wait it out for 10 years. And sometimes they're keeping their fingers crossed. Other times the infrastructure will last half the life of the street when they can go in and take care of their business at that point in time.
Yeah, and you may have a situation with a water main that you take a risk to say we'd like to get to it, but it's too much money, it's too invasive, and in the course the work may be done and you may end up with a break, but then you'll have a patch repair. But it shouldn't hold the entire project back as far as the entire road. So these are all sort of things we balance regularly, whether independent of when we make the investment, the same consideration has to be had. So I do see on Rebecca Woodward is has a hand held up. Rebecca, Bob, I don't know if people can just automatically weigh in. Rebecca, can we hear you?
Yes, hi, thank you. Rebecca Woodward, 295 Andersneck Hill Road. And
All right, I'm sorry, Rebecca, I'm just going to pause because I'm not sure where the audio is coming from, so we can pick your question up.
Sound like that black speaker.
Is it
Turn it up.
I don't know with Minuteman if there's something we can do.
Can you speak again, Rebecca? So that
Well,
can
so we
translate?
have someone online who's talking, and she seems to be coming in from that speaker.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Can you lean closer to your computer and you can yell at us and we won't take any offense?
I'll hold you to that. Can you hear me now?
Barely, but go ahead.
Yeah, if we can make it out, we'll repeat the question.
Thank you. So Rebecca Woodward, 295 Andersneck Hill Road, and also new TAC member just of today. One of my questions was, I'm wondering how much the Stantec models accounted for expected climate changes, including the increase in precipitation that's expected, including heavier downpours and also even higher winter precipitation. Thank you.
All right, so I believe the question related to if Stantec's model factored in climate changes, specifically with respect to more extreme weather conditions like, flooding and that sort of thing. Steve, is there anything we can speak to that, if that's?
The short answer is no, Alan. The modeling for pavement is a pretty standard model now, even though you have different software out there. They use the deterioration that exists, the various kinds of deterioration, and the extent of the deterioration, and they run that through their algorithms to come with a pavement condition. And then there are standard ways of treating those different conditions. Like I said, cracks, and if you have cracks, the cracks, but if you have deep cracks, then you build the road. So those are standard treatments. And then using what I tried to describe before, trying to catch within a grouping before it falls into worse grouping at a higher cost. Those are the kinds of algorithms they use in their model. So in terms of climate-induced precipitation and so on, that's not part of the standard modeling for pavement condition, and it's budgeting.
But you can assume that more rain means even faster deterioration of roads, I assume.
Yeah, so when we're doing the preventative maintenance, if we stay on top of that, will reduce the likelihood of quicker deterioration. But again, the model, with or without, would affect any of these simulations. I think it's just the economics ultimately.
I'd like to add, Alan, that the next topic, or one of the topics we're talking tonight, will be stormwater, and that's where you address, issues related to, climate change and so on.
We have a question in the room here. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Hi, my name is Mary Hartman. I'm a member of the Select Board. I'm speaking on my own behalf. We have not discussed this as a board. I have a question. I heard the request to translate the debt service into the impact on the median residential tax bill, and I think that's a great idea. But if we think of this as an investment, we might want to also quantify the impact on the residential tax bill for doing nothing.
Yes.
So, because there's a cost that's out there, okay, that we're going to avoid. So if we think of it as an investment, we should really let the taxpayers know both sides of that.
That speaks to the backlog problem, which is kicking the can down the road. You don't see it in your tax bill, but the liability builds up. Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
And I do see Terry Ackerman has her hand up.
Terry?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
No, but if you speak loudly, we'll try and hear you and repeat the question.
I'm a member of the Select Board, but speaking on my own behalf. I love the concept of this. My question is the numbers in the chart. On the current budget, we're already spending $2.5 million. And on the purple, the PCI of 85, is that $5 million in addition to the 2.5 million, or is it the total?
Terry, I'm sorry, I could not hear the...
I think the question was, is the $5 million in the PCI 85 the total expenditure per year, or it increased over 2.5 basically? It's not an increase over.
So I'm sorry. Mark, can you say that again?
Terry, you have to go.
Mark, if you can come up here, you can speak somewhere. Yeah. Or that might work there. Yeah.
Hello, Terry.
Hi.
Were you asking whether, say, in the PCI to 85 column, the $5 million per year is the additional increase over the 2.5, or it's the total?
Correct.
Or was it a different question?
That's the question, yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, Terry, we're having audio issues with hearing your question, but I think Mark just responded with the fact that the numbers that you see in the table are not in addition to, but standalone annual costs. And as Sven mentioned, if they're emboldened, it means they are tier 3 borrowing, and that's 5 million or over, that'd be covered. If it's under 5, it would be tier 2 capital. Don't know if that answered your question, but sorry.
Another question in the room.
Hi, I'm Eric Dahlberg, Finnegan Way. I'm on the finance committee, but speaking for myself. Why has this been historically underfunded? Why have we let it get so bad?
Predates me, so Al.
Well, no, so, well, I will say it predates a lot, well, with the current team, and I don't want to say, there was a lot of investment in energy spent, I know in the Cambridge Turnpike. That was a major initiative, and I believe that did actually require a lot of the roads program went and was dedicated towards that significant project. I think it was $13 million or something like that. The challenge we've had over the Public Works is, Steve Dukran has come, we've been working collectively for the past 5 years. We've been identifying this need, but we never really had the opportunity and the wind in the sail to make the case as to this different financing model of investing up front. We put together proposals year after year, and we're going to go in and talk about some of the other things we're looking at, sidewalks and safety issues. And we've been able to bundle them, so at least we know what the ask should be, but there really hasn't been the presentation and understanding of what the real costs are. So we've been following sort of normal practice, but I know the $2.5 million a year has pretty much been a standard as long as I can recall. But why did it happen? It's basically just an awareness and understanding of the financing and the bandwidth to do the work.
I think for me being now 5 years in the town, what I just try to get together on information why it's happening. It was coming to the point, I think Mary did, is it's easy to just build up a backlog because you don't see it on your tax bill. Yeah, so it was easy just to run as usual, and nobody sees what's building up, and it was an easy kicking the can down the road strategy. Also, probably avoidance of trying to get something in Tier 3 financed, because that's more effort to get it done. And the last point I will have to say is also, and it relates to the stormwater part, is that we underfunded stormwater, and each time there was an emergency, we took it somewhere else, and one part we took stuff out of was the street financing, because stormwater is often correlated to the street, but we spent then on emergency expenses on the stormwater and couldn't do more streets.
Yeah, unplanned expense. And Eric, I think the other issue was really through the FinCom. It was only a few years ago when they, through I think very smart planning, said we don't want year-to-year budgeting. We want to know what's the 5-year, 10-year plans. And that really does shed some light, and I think that's where we're at. When you look at the 5 and 10 years is when you can make better decisions.
Can I add something to that? So one of the things that we often forget is construction inflation. If you track inflation, consumer index will be going at 5%, but construction has seen upwards of 15% on materials that go into paving, liquid asphalt, and then fuel. There's a lot of fuel used during paving, and that if you look at, for instance, 7 years ago, you would have been paying $45 a ton for asphalt. Today, we're paying $90 to $100 a ton. So, we sometimes are too embarrassed to ask for enough money, so we ask for what we think they will give us, as opposed to here's what it already cost, and that's what Alan was talking about. 5 years ago, we started doing that. This is the real cost. We want $4 million, but the town couldn't afford to give us $4 million. So we kept on underfunding the program. And today we are faced with the reality, which is our backlog is going to just skyrocket.
Andrea.
I would just point out too, my first Public Works meeting as a member was on September 8th, 2021, and that was you guys were pretty new, and that was my very first introduction into all of this. Is that you guys discussed at length the difference between having a roads program and having a sort of pavement emergency program. So for 5 years, they've been trying to get attention to this different way of planning out how to take care of our roads. And I think through a lot of effort and research, they finally came to this best case scenario for dealing with it.
Okay, so there's a second half to this, and that's about sidewalks and safety. And the background of that is when we floated the ideas of a Tier 3, we floated about 25 million over 5 years. In the scenarios we saw, as we were talking of less of Tier 3 than that. So the question was, okay, when we touch the roads anyway, then would it be smart to touch the sideways and anything that is related to the safety of the pedestrian and bikes at the same time, instead of doing the roads and then 5 years down the road doing the other things? And can we just combine these things together and seeing where we are ending up in a combined view of these things. So that is the prelude. Go ahead.
Okay, who's to talk about sidewalks? You mentioned 59 miles of sidewalks that were reviewed by Stantec, and they came up with a network average, SCI, similar to PCI, Sidewalk Condition Index, of 74. Backlog, almost $6 million. Now, let me explain what that really means. The backlog of $6 million or so is for repairing the existing sidewalks. It can be localized repair where you rip up a deteriorated piece and replace it, or you can replace the entire lane. That's what that $5.8 million will buy you. The map just shows you the sidewalks throughout town, green being great condition, red being you got to replace those or repair them. Okay. So Stantec ran some funding models for us, some budget models, looking at trying to achieve different sidewalk condition indexes. So the first model, spending $650,000 a year for each of the 5 years, will get us to about SCI of 72 in the year 2030. That's a deterioration. If you spend $750,000 a year, you'll end up with 72 and a half, a little bit less than where we are today, but still deteriorating. So in order to get some improvements, you spend either the next two columns, $1 million a year or 1.2, getting first a slight improvement and then a better improvement. So somewhere in there is what we should be looking at. All right, and Stantec also took a look at where we would need sidewalk connections. These are new sidewalks, and they proposed that we should do 6.6 miles of new sidewalks. The black locations there on the map are where they should be, and they estimated the cost of that backlog for new sidewalks is almost $14 million. So, yeah, can we fund this $14 million? The answer is not at this time. We will continue to look for grants, like we did recently. One of them, sidewalk shown there, the Walden Street sidewalk, we recently received a $500,000 in Complete Streets grants. We will look at Safe Routes grants, shared streets and spaces. We have been successful getting some of those in the past couple of years.
So no new sidewalks in the plan, yeah?
That's right. The plan is to restore, refurbish what we have.
Okay.
Okay. How do we spend what we've been talking about regarding pavement and then getting some sidewalk improvements done, getting some safety improvements done regarding pedestrian, bicycle, traffic. So what we are looking at here is not all of the different pavement models we looked at before, just a few that are, that the town is viewing as more favorable. The first grouping of 3 shows $7.5 million a year for the first 2 years in pavement, and then followed by $750,000 a year for the pedestrian and bike safety improvements, which is the second row. Certainly look at the third row, there's $0 put in the model for new sidewalks. The second grouping of 3 shows the pavement where you spend $5.75 million a year for 4 years, and followed by the 5th year of $2 million like we've seen before, which will give you $25 million, right? That's the $25 million you see in pavement, and then followed by, I'm talking the middle of that second grouping, right? So followed by $1 million per year for pedestrian and safety improvements, which is the $5 million. So let me jump into the third grouping, which is For pavement, it's $7.5 million for each of 3 years. And then for the next, the fourth and fifth year will be $2 million each, giving you that $26.5 million for pavement. And then the middle column shows, $1 million a year for pedestrian safety improvements. So then you get onto the bottom, but I think the next slide will show you better in terms of the numbers where we are. So let's break up the $25 million in the first red box for pavement. It's kind of small there, but you might be able to see it. $23 million in tier 3 and $2 million in tier 2. So remember that's $5.75 million for 4 years. That's the tier 3, that's $23 million. And the $2 million will be the tier 2, giving you 25 altogether. And then for the pedestrian safety improvements will be $2.6 million for each of 5 years. No,
4 years.
Sorry, it's $650,000 for each of 5 years. Am I getting those numbers correct?
650,000 for 4 years. Why
4
we
years.
doing?
Right.
So the idea is that while we are doing the streets, can we tack something to the tier 3 borrowing that is taking care of the sidewalks and the safety? So therefore, the tier 3 associated with the pedestrian and bike safety is correlated to the timing of the tier 3 work in the streets of the pavements. So means 650K in 4 years for pedestrian and bike safety, plus the $23 million for the pavement brings you to $25.6 million in tier 3. So it's a little bit complex, but we want to be sure that we understand where the money comes from and how much the total borrowing would be. And the low line gives you what is the borrowing line in tier 3. And we understand, because we floated it before, something like a $25 million borrowing, we want to see which scenario comes close to that $25 million borrowing and achieves both the pavement plan we like and the sidewalk and safety plan. It's a bit tricky, but
it's also important to understand that when we are explaining this, that there are funds that we need to allocate for the safety component, improve crosswalks, looking at where we can integrate some of the cycling, interests. And historically, those haven't received the funding because even the roads themselves aren't getting sufficient funding. So they've always been sort of orphaned and afterthoughts. And some of these improvements are not just, $25,000, $50,000. They may be more significant. So what we want to do is have sufficient funds to do the real improvements, when we can. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we're prioritizing, but this slide is important to just identify. We want to be clear that if we do go to the town seeking tier 3 approval, they understand where that money will come from and where it will go. And that's the intent.
And perhaps some words on Chapter 90 money, which is not showing here. At the moment, this is not sure money. And with the new administration right now, with Elon, I don't know what he's doing. I think is at the moment Chapter 90, we have to see is what of that is real. And when we get Chapter 90, we can either do additional faster deployment and or replace costs we would have done. But at the moment, it feels not, at least from my perspective, feels not good to rely on Chapter 90 funding.
Yeah, and just historically, the town is dependent on it for somewhere in about $650,000 a year. But that's where we are not factoring that in other than acknowledging that could contribute to these improvements.
Yeah.
Hello, yeah, Mark Alis. I'm chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee, but we don't have a quorum here. I'm just going to speak for myself. So just wonder if anybody could comment on the fact that by doing this longer range planning and thinking about, safety improvements at the same time, that we might be in a much better position to apply and obtain grants because we have the sort of kickoff seed money or the partial payment from the town money, and also maybe comment a little bit about how this longer range planning and having the money committed by town meeting in advance might help us negotiate better contracts with construction companies and material suppliers, et cetera. I'd like to hear a little bit more about those benefits that are on top of the benefits already described.
Okay, I think, Mark, I'm going to look to see if we will wrap up to address those. So I think we'll make sure we address those comments, and it's really the efficiencies of, larger investments and dovetailing with, grant opportunities. And I can speak to grants. Sometimes they're not predictable, and the state may come up with funds or there's federal funds that become available, and those people who are ready tend to qualify and be eligible, and often you need to show that it may be matching, so you need to be able to look at your budget and say, yes, we have the funds, we can take advantage of the matching grant opportunity. So that is something which is, and it'll be clear, this vote is once for a 5-year cycle, right? So that's why we're talking about this bundle, so then we can spend it and plan it efficiently. So it won't be a year to year. And once we vote that in, year 3 grants become available, and we can point to this as a source of funds.
I'm Mimi Greeny, the Economic Vitality Manager. Just so I understand, it looks like this 5-year plan is strictly for maintenance. It doesn't advance ADA accessibility, because it sounds like that wasn't one of the things, it wasn't improving our accessibility, and it was no new sidewalks. If that's true, it feels a little like that's a big I'm super thrilled that investing in pedestrian connectivity, because that's the lifeblood of economic vitality, and especially as we're leaning heavily into making it more accessible for people who are visitors, recognizing our population is aging, people who want to be able to walk versus take their car. That feels super important. It worries me a little bit. It reminds me a little bit when I did a big investment on my house, and at the end it looked exactly the same. And that's what this plan sort of looks like, is where is going to be the tangible way that it feels like we're better at the end of this 5 and 10-year investment, that it's not just catching up on maintenance. And is there a way to bake in something so that it actually feels like we've made some advances along the way?
Yeah, so I got to be clear, the statement that there won't be improvements with ADA wasn't made. So I think, let's be careful. We continue to make ADA investments annually. So that's always going to draw from, and it's an important part of our investments. This will allow us to enhance some of those things like intersections and crosswalks that we wouldn't, that's not a maintenance. If we do improvements, that's the pedestrian safety improvements that dovetail in. So it's not just the pavement. When you hear pavement, that's the sidewalk condition, and the roadway condition. But the additional funds are to also allow for some of these other niceties, including, we've talked, and I know TAC has been identifying certain areas of interest like Haywood Meadow, crossings, Kenny Dunn Square conflicts, and that sort of thing. So that will not be as is, those will be improvements. So I just want to be careful we don't classify it as just replacing the same.
Yeah.
Go back to slide 20 then, because that's where it seemed like it was called.
Slide 20.
Yeah, where it says localized saw cutting and patching, not completely built to ADA compliance.
Let me explain what that means. If you walk down a sidewalk and there's a trip hazard, say the root of a tree lifted the sidewalk, that's fixing that repair, that spot, but not looking at the entire sidewalk or rebuilding or replacing the entire sidewalk to make it ADA compliant. You find a lot of sidewalks that are pitched improperly or too steep, To make that ADA compliant, you have to repave the entire sidewalk. And you have to deal with backer sidewalk issues, butter issues, and so on. That's the plan. If the sidewalk is in really poor condition, the entire sidewalk surface is bad, that's the second category, which is full reconstruction. That's falling within the repairs.
Sidewalks that are not completely built to ADA compliance. This is what you want to say.
That's probably a better statement, yes.
It's a little bit confusing what's there,
Right.
but that is what it meant to say.
So for example, from walking from here to the Concord Museum, when I look at that map and I see that it's going to be, right now it's listed as green, I believe, saying no repairs needed, it is not accessible, it is not no accessible path to get from here to there, which is one of the primary routes, that and going to the North Bridge. And it sounds like, it looks like that's not projected.
That's the sidewalk on the other side of the street. So you have more on the museum side of the street, that would be a new sidewalk.
So there's not a paved sidewalk on either side.
Yes,
And there's steps on the side that it has got at least the stone dust on it.
stone
Right,
dust.
I'm gonna just volunteer, we're into the weeds. We hear the question and the concern. I think that's the point,
Yeah.
rather than sort of try to get too granular here.
Yeah, I understand, just to understand a little bit of at the end of 5 to 10 years, are we going to be better or kind of fixing what we've got? And it sounds like fixing what we've got.
No, if we continue as is, we'll be a lot worse. Not, that's the message, just holistically. So that's what we're trying to prevent.
One more question.
Linda Neiman, 59 Mallard Drive. I'm a co-coordinator of Mothers Out Front, but speaking for myself right now. I echo Mimi's concerns. This is just a 5-year plan for safety improvements, but the pavement has a 10-year plan. So what happens at the end of 5 years? And it sounds like it's just to get us kind of up to snuff with a couple of, niceties, but really we need to think more comprehensively in town. Do you have any comments about the longer-term plan besides just applying for grants?
Sure. I also see Nick, I'm sorry, someone else at the, okay, yep.
Hi, Tanya Galis, 62 Prescott Road. I don't think this mic is working, but I am concerned about conflating pedestrian and bicycling safety on sidewalks. Crosswalks, yes. Sidewalks, I'm not sure, and there are in fact even bills proposed at the State House recently that would allow all sorts of electric bikes into one class and allow them on sidewalks and dirt trails as well, so that's of big concern. However, I think when it comes to the pavement side of things, maybe, I think it's very important to make our already paved roads safer for all bicycles. And so some of the bicycle concerns, I think, should be directed towards the already paved walks and crosswalks, but not necessarily sidewalks. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to make this very quick comment. Just say that at the next TAC meeting on the 20th next week, one of the things on the agenda is going to be continuing a discussion about whether TAC might want to recommend a few specific examples of locations for the consultant and staff to kind of lay out some conceptual design so the public can be more involved and understand what kind of changes and how much it might cost to actually make some significant safety improvements in some areas that people have been asking about for 5 or 10 years.
Okay, I don't know if Nick Pappas, if you wanted to ask a question or not.
Well,
Okay.
Can I speak?
The next two slides, just very quickly.
Very quickly. All
Yeah,
right.
I just wanted to point out, I think that. I
We
thought
can
that-
skip over. We've seen this before. This was just for a quick reference. Okay. So this is work that's ongoing. Stantec is doing, working with prioritization criteria to come up with projects to address the safety needs, especially in areas that will see paving in the next cycle of pavings in the next 5 years if this program goes through. So look at those funnels you have below. The PCI score is important. The pavement condition score is important because it means that if you go in that street, look for projects in that street, right? And then the middle funnel that looks at ADA criteria that we were talking about before, the sidewalk condition index, the type of material, whether it's stone dust or not, any obstructions, that group gets a score as well. And then on the last funnel of total safety intersection score, safety issues, missing handicap ramps and so on, those are going to be all put together to give you that condition score. And then the next slide will show actually what's brought into the actual modeling for getting projects, and that's the prioritization criteria. All kinds of various activities are identified here and shown on that heat map. For instance, proximity to schools, train stations, crossings, the business district, recreational amenities. All of those are being brought into this model to give us to help them come up with projects that they continue to work on. And very likely, the projects that TAC intends to identify at the next meeting will probably come up in these results. The last slide just shows that Stantec has, skip over.
Here we go.
Yeah. The one after that, Alan? Yes. This is just showing you that Stantec has created a dashboard where all this information can be plugged in, and the town staff can use this to help with not just current work, but future work, using the same kind of criteria to identify projects that we need. And then I guess the last slide probably was the first slide. The achievements are what we identified before as objectives. And the last point here about grants, Mark, where you said we plan some seed money and that will help us to get grants. We are keeping that into consideration as we move forward with the program.
Thank you. From the commissioners. Yeah, we talked a lot about this already in prior meetings. So I would like to thank the staff and Stantec really on making us much smarter and understanding what is going on. It's then up to us as the town, as the citizens of the town, to make a decision how and when we want to spend the money, and in what kind of conditions of our roads and sidewalks we are ending up. So I think that the goal is, at the moment with our article for the warrant, to ask for the 25 million. That I think is the ask.
Yeah, and I think it was to hear, we're beginning sort of to understand more as we start broadening the universe of who knows what we're up to and what we're about. It's great that we have some representation from FinCom, Select Board. I think we work closely with TAC, and that'll continue. I think that partnership's really important for Public Works, as we haven't had that other entity to sort of help inform and get that input from the community. I think that's where, the partnership's working. And that's also going to, at the end of the day, what is town meeting willing to support, and to understand a tier 3 ask is outside of, the debt, ceiling. So that would require a separate vote as well, a ballot question. So this is an important initiative for the community. And I think what we're trying to do is get out of the year-to-year, hand-to-mouth approach it has really failed us. And, you know, is it perfect? Do we have every crosswalk or sidewalk or street addressed? No, but the modeling and the approach does not change. And if we don't change path, we can continue business as usual, and that's not really something we'd recommend, especially if you want to look at the 10-year kind of financing and the quality of life.
I think the big challenge for you will be to simplify this presentation in a way that at the hearings and at the town meeting, people understand
Yes.
this. Yes, we can't go through 1.5-hour presentation in the hearing.
Correct. But this is recorded, and we can have people and direct people to this discussion as well, so.
Can we move to the next agenda item? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, that is stormwater.
Okay.
Can we try to
Yeah, so I'm
talk
gonna,
faster?
Yes, I think with stormwater, I'm gonna have Sammy Poodle come on up. She's our stormwater engineer. Steve Dukran might, provide some support. But stormwater, we've had lots of discussions and conversations, and this is a work in progress. We'll go through a overview, just so you can understand what we've been up to since last town meeting. We had some commitments, we're meeting them, and this is the beginning of, and really I think the big issue today is we're announcing that a stormwater report has been completed, which will help frame very broadly what a stormwater utility looks like, why we're sort of presenting it, and talking about, concepts of budgets, rates, potential credits, and impact. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sammy to walk us through it. Will I get to share this? I'm gonna find out where I am on my Zoom. Here we go. I share, and hopefully I keep my charge. Here we go.
Hello everyone, and I'm here to provide update regarding the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. We have been working regarding the evaluation of a Stormwater Enterprise Fund for Concord since past year, and today we're just here to provide general update on what we have been working on. Before starting, just wanted to go over the stormwater. When we say stormwater, we basically mean the rain or melting snow that flows into our land and impervious surfaces and runs off. And with more impervious area, they're less able to infiltrate, and then it gets more runoff is generated, and it just goes through our stormwater system that's throughout the town, which is like catch basin, manholes, and then outfall into the rivers. So the stormwater that doesn't get infiltrated into the ground gets picked up, and it collects dirt, oil, chemicals, pest waste, trashes on its way into our stormwater system, which eventually drains into the rivers that we have, and we are trying to do the treatment beforehand so that the waterways are not polluted, and we can maintain this. So just to give the general overview of what's been going on around United States and Massachusetts communities, there's about 2,100 communities across the United States which has implemented the Stormwater Enterprise, and there's about 22 communities from 2023 records which have implemented the stormwater utilities, and which has been working on getting the stormwater improvement and updating as per the MS4 requirements. If we just go over the stormwater utility, it's basically an entity that would be responsible for managing the stormwater, and which would be funded by the fees from property owners. So stormwater utility would be applicable to all of the property. So all the residential, town-owned, commercial, every property would be billed regarding the stormwater fee. And we have been working with Western and Sampson to do the analysis of the overall stormwater requirement for the town and what we need to have in budget in order to meet the requirements, which would be basically providing and it will basically provide the funding for the stormwater management that needs to be done. We need to comply with the MS4 permit, and that's the requirement. We cannot avoid that. And with the stormwater utility, will be improving the stormwater drainage system, rehabilitate the aging infrastructure, update the infrastructure that we have, and then prepare for the extreme weather events. And the benefits would just be long-term planning for the stormwater needs that's required. And I think we have been discussing that stormwater has been the forgotten utility because it's underground, you don't see it, but it has impacts to our environment. So that's why we're taking action regarding it. This slide basically shows what we have been doing up until now and what's the plan moving ahead. We have had community stakeholder meetings. We had the Stormwater Fund article approved and worked towards it. And then we have done multiple presentations to the PwC regarding the budget requirement for the stormwater management, fee structures, different kinds of fee structure that we did the analysis and to come up with the one that we would be adopting. And then the credit policy that could be applied for the properties that maintain the stormwater BMPs. And we have the Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund evaluation completed by Weston Sampson in collaboration with the town. We have that available in the Stormwater Utility page. And we would be conducting the public outreach up until April before the fee structure approval by the PwC in May meeting. And then following that, we would have the stormwater budget through the annual town meeting, and then the fee collection process would begin possibly in FY26. I'm just going to give general overview of what we have been going on through. We have already done the stormwater budget, fees, and credit presentations in PwC. And I'll provide the link to the page where you can access all of that if you want to go back and review it. This is just a general overview of we're asking for $1 million annually, which would be required to maintain the existing stormwater infrastructure, update, and meet the regulatory compliance. 1 million is divided into capital cost, non-capital cost. Capital would be construction project, equipment purchase is required. Non-capital is the MS4 permit compliance, drainage mapping that needs to be done with weather sampling, all of the requirements, staffing needs associated with it, asset management plan that needs to be programmed for the stormwater. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so this one is just giving you the different fee structure options we have. Weston and Sampson had come up with after reviewing the Concord's need. We have 4 different kind of options. You can see the flat fee. You can see the fees associated with it: 1 to 3 family residential, non-residential, and larger multifamily residential. And this all the detailed fee structure options were discussed in the PwC meeting, which was held on October 9, and we have a video recording of it if you want to go back and look at it. But just to give general overview of these are the 3 options and giving the minimum that would be like starting pricing. And the stormwater fee structure was established based on the impervious area associated with each property, how much runoff is generated from each property. We analyze all different kinds of impervious area associated within the town. You can see the graph showing the percentages of different types of impervious area, which overall helped in calculating the fee required. We went over the credit policy during the PwC meeting in December. This one just gives a general overview of 3 different kinds of credit policy we were planning to have. Small residential credit. If you have acceptable BMPs installed within your property, then you can be eligible to get up to 25% of your credit. Similarly, for the non-residential, multifamily residential, 50% of stormwater fees, and then senior and low income discount is up to 25% of stormwater fee.
A quick question on
Yeah.
the senior and low income. We discussed, I don't know how many meetings ago, that the discount for senior and low income should be in line and consistent with the other enterprise funds. Is that the same?
Yes.
That's
structure?
correct.
Yes,
Same
it
criteria.
is the same.
Okay.
We have the ongoing public outreach program. We have done the fee structure and credit policies presentation. We would be conducting public outreach meetings up until end of April before PwC meeting. And on the May PwC hearing, the PwC would be approving the stormwater fee and credit policy option, which would be, because the annual town meeting is after that, it will be approved with condition of revision if required, based on the budget approval. We can go. The QR code just sends you to the stormwater utility piece, which you would be able to see all of the PwC meetings associated with the stormwater presentations we did, and the evaluation of a stormwater enterprise fund report conducted by the Western Samson in collaboration with Town of Concord, which gives the detailed breakdown of the budget fees for everyone's review.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Just because we've been talking about this for so long, I just wanted you to just explain very quickly, why are we doing this? I mean, is it a federal mandate? What is an MS4 permit? What happens if we don't do this? Are we okay? What happens? Just to explain why we're doing this.
Yeah, it is the EPA mandate. We have to do it. If we don't, then we would be getting fined, which I think in past we have. The Town of Concord has been. We've been working through, and just based on the examples, right? The Baker Ave culvert, when we don't have the proper stormwater program, we're reacting to the failure rather than being proactive, which in turn, we have to spend more money than what we would have if we had been working through it. And that is why we're establishing the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. And most of it is because of the MS4 permit as well. There's a requirement that we need to meet no matter what.
I'd also just volunteer, what's different is that presently any costs are entirely borne by taxpayers. And so a lack of maintenance or repair, replacement ends up becoming more of an emergency cost, and that's imposed on just the taxes. Whereas the town of Concord has lots of property, this is more equitable in that it just doesn't put the burden on the residential community. It's to share the costs of this shared resource and investment. And ultimately, the regulations are driven to protect the environment. So that's what the MS4 is. It's a NIPDES permit, similar to what we have with our wastewater treatment facility. It regulates and controls the flow and quality of what gets put into the environment, and there's a responsibility of managing that. And when we talk about, a question came on, what about climate impact on roads? We certainly are seeing an impact on our stormwater systems, and if we don't have a better understanding of what the system's conditions are and maintain them, we're just really exposed for unanticipated significant costs. So,
Thank you.
One more thing, there's a draft permit from the EPA to renew the current permit.
Yeah,
It's coming with stricter requirements.
Yeah, we've been put on notice, as well as everybody across the country and Commonwealth, that the idea of stormwater management is not new. This goes back 20 years, where the first permit was issued for MS4. It was all about identifying, educating and making people aware. The next phase of the permit was improved to include some water quality testing, some asset assessment work. But all along for 20 years, we've been told it's leading towards requirements where we're going to have to start spending to repair, replace, upgrade, these assets. So we know that. That's the intent of the MS4 program. And anybody interested in go on the EPA website and learn more about it there. But as Steve said, there's a draft permit out there which is starting to ratchet up the expectations, across the country.
Other questions? No. For the public? Please.
Carlin Reed, member of the Finance Committee, but speaking on my own behalf. I've had the pleasure of reviewing your report. Very well done. But I have a question about the budget. It says on the report that the budget is $1 million annually. Of that, $361,500 is for the MS4 compliance, and $484,000 is for the operation and maintenance. Now, my understanding is this $1 million budget is supposed to take place of a $250,000 expense that the Public Works Department currently is experiencing for stormwater. Two questions. One, are you over collecting? If your expense was $250,000 and you're moving it up to $1 million, why are you collecting 4 times as much? And two, is the expected expense for the compliance, $361,500, going to happen every year, or is it a one-time expense? My concern is that you're over collecting, because as I understand, this is a fee, and fees are not supposed to be over collecting. That's not appropriate.
Okay, so thank you for the question. We'll obviously need to make sure we're clear as far as with future presentations. The $1 million is actually a little, that's what we intend to collect. What you'll see is it's for operation and maintenance primarily, but there is some allowance for miscellaneous repairs, replacements. Small dollar. When we do a roads program, we go in and we see a stormwater system that needs, replacement or upgrade, we may be able to draw from this. I will tell you that the actual need is probably closer to about $2 million with capital. And so I want to be very clear that this is to, pardon the pun, tread water in the universe of stormwater, not necessarily do major replacements, improvements. The Baker Ave culvert we're looking at replacing is about $1 million project. So as an enterprise fund, the good news is any fees that we collect will go into a reserve and will be dedicated towards the stormwater program. So I think we just got to be clear as far as what we're actually getting with the $1 million and what we're not getting with it. But yeah, I hear the question.
Just one thing. The MS4 compliance, is this a 1 or 2 year ramp up, or is it an ongoing level of 360,000?
The chart that we showed is for the first year, but it just slightly varies based on the capital and non-capital costs throughout the 10-year. The stormwater enterprise evaluation that has been conducted and it has been published on the stormwater utility gives the detailed breakdown of each year.
It would be good, just similar to the other ones, to have this 5 or 10 year view on different things, so it's more transparent over a longer period of time. Now the other one is, I think there's always a confusion, is what is in the budget for stormwater currently or in prior years to what we spent actually.
Yeah, so thank you, Sven. We have been, the allocation for stormwater has been significantly less than what, it wasn't hundreds of thousands. I think we got $50,000 in our annual budget. So we got to clarify. And again, the question's helpful. We'll call that out.
One more question for me. My understanding is we're creating an enterprise fund from expenses that used to be part of the Public Works Department's general budget. Does that mean we're shifting that dollar amount out of the Public Works Department budget so that their budget will be less by the amount that goes into the enterprise fund?
Yeah, but as said, it's about $50,000 we had in the budget. But what we make it easier is that we don't need to take money from, let's say, roads and safety the moment we do something on the stormwater system, because we have to do it. Yeah, so this was, all these things for me, sorry, it's like a big puzzle. And if you're taking one piece away, the cost and the need to work is still there. Yeah, like if you look at the Baker Avenue, it's like it's, okay, we get upper money as I understand, but upper is not there anymore. So we can't just leave the hole and the street destroyed. Yeah, so in the end, we still have to spend the money, and it takes, again, resources away. So the thing is, giving a plannable environment where we can get the MS4 compliance, and be an envelope where it's more reliable than $50,000 a year. And B, shifting the burden from the taxpayer to a broader base, which includes commercial, nonprofits, the state owns property here. So it's broader. And it's about the residential from the rate hearing we had is about 51% of the rate then, and the rest is 49%, whereas you know the statistics on the tax, it's like over 90% goes in property tax.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because the stormwater issues become paving issues.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it is a puzzle. You gotta balance it.
Yeah.
I was particularly intrigued a little bit of how can we reduce the burden on the stormwater system? It sounds a little bit like this enterprise fund is needed to kind of maintain the infrastructure that exists and get it all up to snuff. But do we have some metrics, goals on which we're hoping that people will do some of those mitigation strategies, recognizing that those are going to be long-term positive impacts? And that doesn't seem like is kind of part of the plan, so could you flesh that out a little bit more?
Yeah, that speaks to the credit policy, where we're trying to acknowledge private property investments to try and mitigate and manage stormwater. So that's the credit policy. So you know, we've spent there's actually I would highlight, we can't get into all the details in a quick, you know, sort of introduction, but if you go to the stormwater site on the town website, we have links to Public Work Commission meetings where we talk about rates, where we talk about budget, where we talk about credits. And if you're really interested, I would encourage you to go there, and then that might help with sort of inform where your questions come from and how we can answer them.
Yeah, I think to summarize the discussion we had in the commission before is we want to have a fee structure that incentivizes someone doing something and getting a credit. And specifically so for commercial developments, if you think about large parking lots and so on, it helps us significantly if they put something up to standard on that parking lot. So they should get a credit for that. And that's what we'll do.
And again, I have to be clear, we're all regulated. And now the regulations are starting to get imparted into private properties. So people have to do a certain amount anyway, just like Concord with the MS4 permit is going to be required to do more, not just what we've done or haven't done in the past, but we're informed that there's going to be more expectations on better management of stormwater. So those are increasing costs by design, and we've been informed of that. So the new permit requires a certain amount of catch basins that need to be replaced in a given year. This is a regulatory mandate, not an option. Private property, you're going to see larger properties have similar requirements as far as controlling and mitigating stormwater. And to be clear, the small residential parcels, we're probably looking at somewhere on the order of, $50 to $150 a year as part of their fee. And the question is, well, how much are they going to do to save? Is it $50 or $25? I mean, we want to incentivize it, but we're hoping that audience is going to be, interested in just doing the right thing and, taking care of what they can. But the incentive is going to be even greater for the larger commercial operations. Say, we want to do more because we may save some tens of thousands of dollars by doing it. So we're trying to balance that.
Other questions? All right, we're significantly behind schedule, so let's try speed up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Next one is town meeting warrant update. I think you circulated quite a good of a memo, and I assume that the commissioners had all time to read through. So we have the non-routine articles, it's a $25 million for roads and safety, the stormwater fund of $1 million. Then we have the betterment, that's the White Pond betterment.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the MCI wastewater planning part. So these are the 4 non-routine articles.
Yes.
And I would just from commission side, if you have questions, let's limit on the non-routine articles, because the rest.
Yeah, the rest are routine, yeah, which, nothing new, but I wanted just to remind the commission that we submitted our draft articles in accordance to the town manager and moderator's, request. But these larger issues that Sven mentioned, we've been talking about it, and I'm sort of just interested in making sure that you stay engaged and aware of the public comments and the various hearings coming up. But we will be working closely, because these are not just public works. They are, they involve kind of larger town interests. So really, it's an awareness of where we're at. And we've talked about all these items sort of at length in the past, but, and I will be working with the town manager's office on some of the language that's going to go in. So that's really, we'll be supporting, not necessarily leading.
Any concerns on these articles going forward? No?
Nope. No, we've talked about them quite a bit, so we're familiar with them.
All right. I think there was no action required on this anyway.
It's being shut down.
Yeah. Director's report.
Yeah, we're going to have a 5-minute presentation.
Yeah, he can do that. Just give him more than 5 minutes.
You can sit here if you like. Yeah. Let me find it.
So just
Aaron
for the audience,
yeah.
we used to do all departments at once, which was always a little difficult. So we are alternating departments from one meeting to the other. So this time we have highway and roads here.
Yeah. So
good evening, everyone. Aaron McCloskey, Highway and Ground Superintendent. So wanted to provide an update on some of the activities over the last couple of months in the town. Big focus has been winter maintenance. It is the season. The division's responsible for clearing snow and ice from the public roadways.
Aaron, can you speak into that?
Absolutely. Is that better? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Clearing snow and ice from the roadways. So the town's been, we've had a number of winter storms throughout the season so far, just about 12 inches of snow prior to the last storm, so close to 18 so far this season. A number of responses, both plowing and de-icing. And we have another one tonight. Crews are scheduled to come in this evening. So it's been keeping us busy for sure. This is a photo here of one of the snow dumps that we utilize and one of the loaders kind of piling up the snow. We remove snow from parking lots throughout town, public parking lots, and also we'll do some snow removal from downtown areas, Concord Center at the Road Depot, West Concord, following some more significant snow events. So come in with the snow and ice comes potholes as well. So de-icing and plowing of the roads does create some damage, as Steve had mentioned earlier, right? So our division is responsible for kind of operations and maintenance, where Steve's team focuses on, reconstruction and rebuilding capital improvements into the roadway. So these are 3 examples of some of the maintenance activities that we do on a daily basis. There's a curb that was broken from plow damage at Rideout Park, and that was repaired there and patched. Catch basin at the Harvey Wheeler parking lot that we reconstructed, and then a patch that was done on Concord Turnpike, Route 117, near the town line.
Do we know, can you go back? Do we know what the cost was on the stormwater basin rebuild?
So at that location, it's probably 4 employees, That took us, due to the location and kind of the parking, we had to do it on the weekend, because during the week there's preschool and carousel in that parking lot, so we had to do it kind of after hours. It's usually about a day with 3 to 4 employees plus material to make those repairs. $500 to $1,000, something like that, depending on. And on those, we're really not going and digging too deep. It's really, on those structures just below that metal grade. There's sometimes either a precast concrete structure needs to kind of get rebuilt, or there might be layers of brick that have failed and need to get reconstructed. So oftentimes, if you're driving down the road and you see a structure, and the structures like that metal, the metal structure could be square, could be round, with a flat cover. They might start to settle. It's because the bricks have failed or the mortar has failed, below the asphalt, and we'll go in, cut that out, rebuild it, repair it, bring it back to grade, and repave around that. So that's like operations and maintenance that we typically do. And then when engineering contracts out roadway reconstruction, they're going and looking at those and doing much more invasive repairs and reconstruction. And kind of ties into the stormwater. The enterprise, a lot of the stuff is beyond our daily capabilities. It requires a lot of equipment or full reconstruction of pipes that are below grade. That's beyond what we do. So we typically focus on repair and maintenance. There's wintertime. We had a couple of high wind events recently, and during winter storms, oftentimes there's tree damage. The photo on the left, there was a large cedar tree that was split during a high wind event. Multi-liter tree, both leaders were split. We were notified by a visitor of Public Works, and we went out and shut the parking lot down. And one of them was at risk of falling on the building, and the other was on anybody that passed by. So crew was able to respond to that immediately and take that down. Photo in the middle, that was a tree on wires. Our crew in Public Works don't handle trees on wires, so we work closely with CMLP and the light department. They'll come in, make it safe. They're trained to work in those proximities to the overhead utilities, and they'll remove trees like that. And then we'll clear the debris from the roadway once it's on the ground. And then on the right, kind of preventative maintenance. So we'll get notifications from residents or visitors, or we'll do our own tree inspections, and we'll find that there might be a defect in a tree, and we'll go and be proactive and remove that defect or that hazard. So that's a photo of there's a large tree at Emerson Park that crew is pruning with the bucket truck. As a result of tree maintenance, that creates wood debris, and so that gets stockpiled down at the compost site at 755 Walden Street. It's got a multi-use compost facility and a wood storage facility for us. With that wood debris, we contract out the grinding of that material, and then it creates those large piles of wood chips, and that's hauled out and removed seasonally. In the wintertime, we also run the cemetery operations. There's 3 cemeteries in town: Sleepy Hollow, South Burying Ground, and Old Hill. Sleepy Hollow is still an active cemetery, and we perform interments throughout the year in the wintertime. So this is a photo of the cemetery staff clearing out the access way and blowing the snow off of a grave site so there could be an interment at that location a couple weeks ago. Some of the photos here, photo on the left is just 3 pieces of equipment, 2 international trucks and a Ford F550 or F350 set up for plowing ahead of a storm. Some more storm damage tree damage from a high wind event a few weeks ago. Tree blocking the roadway, we were able to go in and clear that. And then we did some driver training with one of our newer employees, and that actually had a plow on the front of it, and that's a piece of equipment that we can use to plow turf fields or grass fields or walkways. Some more photos of winter operations. So the photo on the left is the 133 Kais Road complex, and the trucks mobilizing for a winter storm. You see still starting to collect, and we'll go out and pre-treat the roadways with rock salt de-icer ahead of the storm. And then begin plowing once we have plowable amounts on the roadway. And the photo on the right is one of our employees, Doug Lennox. He's a cemetery specialist. He's in the cemetery, plowing out the cemetery.
That was it?
I think that's it. And then I don't have a photo for it, but one thing I did want to mention, because questions have come up. So we also oversee the solid waste and curbside municipal solid waste recycling program. We've gotten some inquiries recently about some of the lids breaking, and we were made aware of it probably early December. We've about 66 customers have reported issues with the lids. We've been working with Waste Management, and it was identified that there was a defect in the lid from the manufacturer. So Waste Management's been working with Casella as the manufacturer to come out and replace those lids. So they're currently working through those as they become, we become notified of them, pass that along to Waste Management. They're coordinating directly with the residents, and we're getting those repaired. So there are a batch scheduled to be repaired tomorrow, and we'll continue on until, any outstanding lids.
Yeah,
need repair,
funny
so.
enough, I was one of them, and they repaired it on one Monday. On the Friday, then it broke again.
Call back again.
I did.
All right.
Yeah. Good to know it's a manufacturer defect.
Yeah,
Will
I
be
just
corrected.
think that the plastic, this little loop where the lid is on the main body, that the plastic is far too thin. It's just.
We've been in communications with Waste Management on that, so they are aware. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Questions? No?
Yeah, I will just reinforce the highway grounds, works with also water sewer with the winter emergencies. But just when you see the snow, it's a good indication that they've been out and about. But oftentimes what you don't see is, the middle of the night when it's icing over and crews are being called in. By the time you're up and out and trying to get to work, we've already been in, we're done. So it's just sort of a chronic challenge, and winter maintenance just ebbs and flows, and you get melting, you get ice, you get treatment. So it's a never-ending task, and it's always remarkable the effort that the crew puts in because there's long hours, and it's really important for the safety of the community. So
And I have to say, every winter I'm impressed and how efficiently you're doing this. And I always thought the Germans have it organized, but no, Concord has it. So a really great job.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a great team. Yeah, everyone, they put in a ton of effort and a lot of planning go into it, so.
Even before anything starts, you guys are out there treating the roads all night long.
Aaron will give the community, at least the staff, an update of significant weather events coming. So we coordinate with all the departments. Aaron is sort of the local weatherman who's sort of been tracking the storms, brings everybody up to speed so we can coordinate amongst departments as far as when the event may occur, what sort of operations you need to be aware of, what plans or events do you need to consider. So this is something that we've started just a couple of years ago, and so it's a really useful tool, I think real valuable to the community. So we are kind of working collectively when these events happen.
All right, there's no further questions. We have 6:03. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I hereby close and adjourn the meeting at 6:03.
Second.